Yeah. So May 26th, as I understand it, will be a work session type of meeting. There may be some other stuff at the very beginning. I know that probably be a closed session. But most of that meeting will be in a work session kind of format. We're really excited about the facilitators that we've made contact with to help the board explore this first piece of student assignment. We're going to have Dr. James Johnson from UNC Chapel Hill come and talk to us about demographics at the national, state, and even at the local level. I've talked to him a couple times. Very easy guy to talk to, particularly on such a, can be a complex issue. So really excited to hear what he has to say. And probably give him about 45 minutes to an hour to make his presentation. And then we'll turn it over to Dr. Kathy Mintzberg. And Kathy is the executive director of an organization that does this work for school districts, and we actually had a member of the organization, and the full name escapes me right now. I can get that for you. Scott Christensen was the previous member of that organization that came and talked to us. Yeah, Center for
Reform School Systems.
Yeah, Reform School Systems, that's it. Yeah. And Scott, I did talk to Scott a few weeks ago, and he highly recommended Kathy. So not only will she be at least somewhat familiar with how the district has put together their theory of action, mission, vision, that type of thing, but also has experience in working with school districts throughout the country, even on this specific issue of student assignment. So she is here more to help facilitate that conversation, and we're allowing for about 2 hours in our agenda for that. And then we'll move on to the magnet review, and Keisha Craven-Howe will step up and share some information on the magnet process, the magnet review process. So it will be definitely a very full agenda. We have allowed a few opportunities for breaks to get dinner. And
so that's a 5-hour agenda.
It is a 5-hour agenda, and it's going to be action-packed.
Starting at 6?
No, 4:30. 4:30.
Oh, okay.
4:30.
5 hours from 4:30.
Yeah, so that would take it, if it went straight, to 9:30. So
And it's May 26th.
that is May 26th.
And there's a
the
dinner.
day after the Memorial Day holiday. So anyway, that's just a recap of that afternoon. So it will be a really kind of a watershed event, should I say, to get us started on this process. Not only for the magnet review and share some information on that, but also really begin to kick us off in earnest with the comprehensive student assignment review. So, and I do appreciate everyone's feedback. I did try to incorporate everybody's good thinking from this committee in developing the agenda and the speakers that we have to help us through this process. So definitely appreciate everyone's input on that. That leads to today. First of all, does everyone have policy JCA either in paper format, or I do have the email from February 13th, I believe, or 12th, that has all the attachments. So, Tom, are you okay on electronic file and so forth? I embrace your comments from last night with the electronic versions of all these documents, so I'm trying to work on that as much as possible. So today, the focus will be on JCA, which is really the meat of the student assignment policy. There is one other policy, that being JFAC, which primarily relates to the transfer policy, transfer reassignment policy. And then there's an accompanying regulations with both these policies, JCA-R and JFAC-R. But today, I'd like to focus on JCA. And a good chunk of this policy talks about our guiding principles. And as we work with Dr. Mintzberg, certainly that will be a good chunk of what we, or what you as a board begin discussing very high level as we start this process. There's more to JCA than just the guiding principles, and we can certainly go through that. So my goal today is to at least go through the policy so that everyone on the policy committee is at least familiar with the policy and ask any questions. And I don't know in terms of timing how much time that there will actually be to lift up and discuss in a lot of detail issues or questions that you may have. But really the goal is just to get through the policy so that you have a basic understanding. I don't think we've done that in some time. It's been at least a few years since we've made any revisions to this policy, and typically that is pretty quick and strategic to the specific area that we're changing, as opposed to an overall soup to nuts kind of look at it.
There have been tweaks to it.
Yeah, there have been. I think we're back last year or the year before last.
So are we just talking about how understanding what it is now, or are we going to talk about some possible changes to that?
So I think the focus today is just understanding what we have currently. And we have folks around the table that were here in 2010 when the guiding principles were developed, and maybe can answer some questions if there are questions.
And then we have another policy committee meeting before this board meeting on the 26th, and it's on May 14th. And Scott will be here then that morning. That's a regular time to continue to work through this so that policy committee members are informed and on top of this and ready to go to the board meeting as the board does its work.
And I certainly know that there's been lots of good discussion in the February and March meetings, primarily around the scope of the work, as well as mapping out what the next steps are in terms of involving the full board. But we really haven't dived into the actual policy, the JCA policy. So I think we attempted to do so in February and got about halfway down to the page. So anyway, which is fine, not a problem with that. So if that's okay with everyone sitting around the table here, that will be at least our focus as we move through the next hour and a half, or less than that even, hour and 15 minutes. So, all right, so the first page, and I will try to work from the screen as much as possible. But certainly you have that in paper format. And the screen will give us a half page at a time here, so we'll just have to kind of work with it. But clearly the first section under the guiding principles for student assignment, everything tied very closely to the theory of action, core beliefs, commitments. I've actually read through those a couple of times over the past couple of weeks. And certainly having read through those at some point in time in the last few years, it was good to go back, and they're on our website, so they're really easy to access. Not a bad thing to do, just to get refocused on those particular items. So this clearly talks about our mission. I'm going to move quickly through that. And talks about what we would, I guess, view as effective school-based leadership and teaching. Again, the way this works is it takes half a page at a time here. So,
You can make it a little smaller.
yeah, I might be able to do that. That's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Everybody see that okay? Kind of okay? All right. All right, so I'm going to jump immediately into our guiding principles. We've talked a lot about guiding principles as we go out to the community and talk about student assignment. It usually takes up a page on the PowerPoint. It's part of our presentation, and we try to incorporate it as a part of all of our our formal presentations as well to the school board. But this is the actual wording. Oftentimes we truncate that. But the first item is our home schools. And at the time, certainly this was developed, there were several board members that felt like the home schools it was the first priority. It's the foundation. It's where we start. That every home school in our district should be of high quality. And certainly the last sentence of that, every student will be guaranteed an opportunity to attend a home school within proximity to where he or she lives. The key word here is proximity. Okay? And we know throughout our district that individuals, parents, families live closer to another school other than the school that they're assigned to. And because of the topography, the geography, where students live throughout our district, in order to be able to have appropriate number of students assigned to each of our school for capacity utilization purposes, that's really the way we have to do it. Okay? So I'm going to stop there for a moment. Everybody, questions, comments?
My comment is, in that last sentence, I think we end up with the most issues with parents when we say guarantee. Because if we need to make distribution of students in school A, which is underpopulated, and that causes that boundary line to get skewed, so that we can get enough students in out of B into A, then somebody living near that border may not be close to the school. They may not be end up being assigned to the school that's closest to their residence. And when we say guarantee, that's the first word they're going to wave up and say, but you said.
Yeah, so context here is obviously important. We're guaranteeing them the opportunity to attend a home school within proximity to where he or she lives. But I definitely understand what you're saying there, is that some people may interpret that as guaranteed to a school that's close to them.
Yeah.
All right.
That's not the closest school necessarily, but it is a guarantee to a school. It's somewhere near their home.
As opposed to, and I think what this is taking into consideration is prior to 2002 when we had satellite zones. And that's much different than what we're
I'm not familiar with what
satellite zone would be if you had a school and then a small attendance area, and then you had an area clear on the other side of the county for which there was an attendance area carved out, and those students would then be assigned to the school.
Oh, is that when we had busing?
That's busing.
Oh, okay. So call it busing. I know
Called
what you're
busing.
talking about.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So one thing to look at there is, could we insert the word reasonable proximity to help define that a little bit more? I mean,
Or could we use another word other than guarantee?
Okay.
well, that's, yeah.
But every kid is guaranteed a home school, assignment to a
From
home
the
school.
school, yeah.
Home
And
school,
everybody
right.
can quit going to magnets and go to home schools, and then we guarantee that.
Mhm. Well, that's not what that says there. It's just guaranteed to an opportunity to attend a home school, but then we're saying within proximity. Well, proximity is something that could be 2 blocks.
Mhm.
Well, we
Well, proximity could
we
be-
tend to define proximity